Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. So, for some of you, this is a little bit of old news, but for many of you, this is brand new. We are based in Montgomeryville, and we're a nonprofit agency, a long time organization, and this is our mission right here. So we're all about transportation, and transportation matters. That's our goal is to, as you can see here, expand and enhance transportation options for everyone. And our strength is in our extensive partnership with over 150 private and public partners. As part of our goal, we want to ease traffic congestion. I think we can all relate to that. And it's an ongoing, worsening situation. And the broader and wider options we have, the better chance we have of easing that congestion overall. Part of the way we do this is through education and engagement with our local communities, the impacts of transportation on land use, environmental impacts, and human and environmental health. So that's us, Partnership TMA. First question, what does TMA stand for? Transportation Management Association. That harks back to almost 30 years ago when the first TMA was formed, and there are literally like I think over 100 throughout the country, but we're all independent and unique entities. So TMA stands for Transportation Management Association. Our association, our agency, provides transportation-related programs and services. I know there's a lot on that screen, but I have our general brochure to give you all afterwards, or you can check out our website too, to get more information about these programs and services. In a nutshell, our TDM program, our Transportation Demand Management Program, is aimed at employers and local communities to take a strategic approach to current and future transportation needs, and how we can work and partner with those entities to come up with creative solutions that work specifically for their situations. You know, maybe it's a shuttle, maybe it's car sharing, van pooling, making bike-friendly workplaces, all kinds of options that don't rely on one person in one vehicle for every trip, or single occupancy vehicles as it's called. Transportation options looks more at an individual level and like looking at options for folks who want to maybe take some trips or possibly all trips without using a car. And a lot of our work has revolved around education on buses and trains in this area, and emerging transportation modes such as e-bikes, electric bikes. That's something that's gaining a lot of attention and more popularity as the price point has come down and people are looking for greener ways to travel. Historically, we've done a lot of work around biking, and that is increasing even more so currently and in the immediate future. You may have noticed we've got a community bike share program around at multiple sites. I think the closest one to here is probably at Lansdale Y. There's also one at the library, Upper Perk Library, Lansdale Library, Indian Valley Library, and those bikes are free to borrow, like a kind of book, an enhancement to kind of loaning books, and you know, all those kind of amenities. That they're there for the community to borrow a bike for up to 2 to 4 days if they need a bike to, or their car's in the shop, or they've got like a gap to fill. And spinning off from that, I'll talk a little bit more about a bike match program we launched this year. Bike safety is critical. That's the biggest reason why people do not bike outside of recreation. You know, a lot of us take our bikes to the trails to bike at the weekends for exercise and health, but a lot of people we know, bike more frequently if they felt safer to do so on roadways. So a lot of our work revolves around accessing resources that help people bike safely, finding low traffic stress streets so that people can plot a route that is less congested with traffic. And as part of that, we also encourage and support wearing helmets and biking safely always. So we have grant funding to supply brand new fitted bike helmets in the community. So that's another piece of our work. The bike infrastructure part kind of fits in with that because, again, in terms of safety, we know people feel a lot safer when they have designated protected bike lanes. And I've really been in Philadelphia recently, but over the past several years, they've put in a lot of road bike infrastructure. And that's, Lucas lives in Philadelphia, and he borrows bikes and particularly e-bikes to get around. It's very popular in urban areas, but it's increasingly becoming more popular in suburban areas as well.
Are those bike lanes being adhered to by
traffic?
If they're protected, yes. If they're not, no.
Unprotected.
Like with some
Is there a
either,
barrier?
yeah, either usually the plastic bollards to denote it off, but.
Okay. That's what I was always wondering.
But a lot of those, it's because a lot of it's people parking or double parking in them, which is which is a bigger issue in the city than it would be in a suburban context where you're usually not parking on the streets that the bike lanes are going in Montgomery County. But as far as people don't usually drive in them.
I'm going to quickly go through this because we want to really get to some significant changes happening soon for this area. But we also offer a helpline service and travel training where we work with youth with disabilities to teach them how to safely access public transit and other options. So that's our program and service kind of overall. This is our small but mighty core staff team here. You see Lucas there for the regular train stop. Brad works on our biking programs. To the left of me, to the right is Annette, who's been with us for 14 years. She lives in Telford, and our communication manager, Ty. And so this is just an example of work we did recently at North Penn High School, where we were travel training students. And the culmination of 6 sessions of training, we bring out a SEPTA bus and actually have a live ride for them, and that really kind of puts all of their learning, into real time, which they enjoy and is really beneficial. Okay, something else we did recently, a new partnership. I think I mentioned this probably earlier in the year. We got a new partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, North Penn Valley Boys and Girls Club. We got additional funding from B&A Foundation and went to Ambler and Southerton and Lansdale sites of the Boys and Girls Club in the spring and gave them some new bike fitted helmets and also education on riding their bike safely over the summer. Pilot bike match quickly. Yeah, this is a great new partnership we're trialing this year for folks who need a bike to get to work specifically. We partner with a bike shop in Pennsburg. They find us a suitable bike. We purchase the bike from them, one that fits and is the right kind of model style for the rider. We partner with the with the recipient to make sure they're safe and comfortable, helmet, lock, resources, etc. And then we're kind of tracking how that helps them get to work. We've done 2 so far. The second one, the gentleman was walking 2 hours a day to get to his shift job from Franksville to Collegeville. And now he's riding his bike, which is like a significant time saver for him. And he was so thankful. So, that's kind of like a gap that we're trying to fill there using the bike programs. Okay, transportation demand management. Lucas, do you want to speak to this slide quickly?
Mm-hmm. So just a bit more detail on our transportation demand management program. So the first thing anyone said, what is transportation demand management? So one of the definitions is a series of strategies used to maximize the efficiency of an existing transportation system in order to improve mobility, reduce congestions, and lower vehicle emissions. But also TDM strategies help connect people to jobs and support regional activity by offering new and real options for commuters and job seekers. Because not everyone has a car or can drive, so having additional options can help open these economic opportunities for people. And it also improves public health and safety by reducing vehicle emissions and pollution generated by vehicles and promoting healthy lifestyles through walking and cycling. So why be interested in TDM? So increase transportation options and accessibility for people who cannot or choose not to drive, and create affordable options for longer distance commutes. Reducing traffic congestion and overloaded roads, as well as parking needs for employers, downtowns, and commercial districts. So that's what seeing transportation as a demand issue with parking and congestion, but reducing the demand by having more people in one vehicle or having people taking alternate transportation modes reduces that demand on the system, resulting in less need for parking and road expansions. And it improves air quality and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Transportation is the largest sector in the U.S. That contributes to greenhouse gases, 29%. A majority of that is from personal vehicles. So transportation options, public transportation, cycling, shuttle services, last mile connections, and ride sharing. So if you need to talk specifics on transportation options or TDM, send me an email anytime. I'm always happy to talk about any of the transportation options there, or any of the things we're going to talk about SEPTA updates in a minute here.
How do the people
they need a bike, for instance, how do they find you? Do
Okay, so they could complete, they can contact us through our website, they can give us a call, it's a one-page application just to get basic data down, like, where they live, where they work, their height, their preferred style of bike, that's it. And then we'll have a phone conversation with them. We do an initial loan of a 1-month period to make sure everything is kind of working for them and, they're using it the way they thought they'd be using it and they feel safe doing it, etc. So we kind of like, it's a very kind of like high touch kind of like relationship at the beginning. And then if everything works through, then the match becomes permanent and they keep the bike.
Is it out there and how do they know that you even do that?
So that's a great question. So as this is a pilot project, like it's limited, like for funding purposes. Mm-hmm. So initially we put this out to what are called the re-entry programs in the county. Okay. So, they're aware that it exists. So it's not kind of out in the general public, right. But we are still looking to make several more matches over the next 3 months because this is the key time. Obviously, trying to do it in the winter is not the time to do this. So if anybody knows anybody, there's no eligibility in terms of income or situation. It's just they need a bike to get to work. And it can be for all of that commute, or it could be part because they can put a bike on a SEPTA bus. Exactly. And maybe they can get a lift, like a ride with a work colleague once or twice a week, but then they need a bike for another couple of days a week. It can be that kind of situation too. Welcome.
So SEPTA updates, the bus revolution. So SEPTA is currently soliciting feedback on 2 draft scenarios for a new reworked bus network. So there are the 2 options. Option 1 contains fewer routes, but they're more frequent. And option 2 is similar to the current network, but an increase in frequent routes, especially on the weekends. Probably the biggest change is that in addition to having fewer routes and having the ones remaining be more frequent, the service changes are going to result in a massive increase on weekend service to support people either using it for lifestyle purposes or for people working non-traditional 9-to-5 jobs. And both options also introduce micro-transit service, which we will go over in a second, because that will, microtransit service will be being introduced in Montgomery Township. So what is microtransit service? Microtransit is a new form of SEPTA service designed to serve low density but high need areas in the SEPTA footprint. I think the best way to describe it is it's like a combination of a regular bus and a service like Uber or Lyft. So it's a bus that is on demand, either by app or by phone call, but it picks you up nearby and takes you to your destination like an Uber or Lyft, but you will share the ride with others. It will take a route depending on where it is picking up and dropping off other customers, but will also only cost the normal fare of a bus, the $2 with the SEPTA key card, as opposed to how much Uber and Lyft cost these days. So that's one of the big upsides to it. So yeah, it has you meet at a short distance, nearby street corner for pickup, or it can provide door-to-door service for people with accessibility needs, because all of these vehicles will also be wheelchair accessible. So service designed to serve smaller zones that connect with the fixed route bus and rail networks, rather than providing longer distance rides. And in both draft scenarios, Montgomery Township will be a new microtransit zone. So this will be coming to the township.
And we're not talking about like the regular full-size buses that we see on the streets now. These microtransit buses will be like minivans or kind of shuttle bus size.
Yeah, I was on the webinar. It's a huge win for the township because we have people who can get obviously to a train station, but then can't get to the businesses or even our township building. We've talked about, internships and, we can't partner with schools with kids who maybe are, say, living in Temple, and they have no way to get off campus. So this is really big for us.
Yeah, the bus revolution is otherwise revenue neutral, and in a lot of cases, because they're cutting many of the routes to consolidate service on less routes that are more frequent, other places are seeing potential reduction in service or just less geography being covered by service. But Montgomery Township in specific is getting an expansion of service because, as we'll see, the microtransit zone goes beyond where the bus routes currently stop at the mall now and serve areas further south as well. So here's just a quick differences between fixed route buses, ADA paratransit buses, and microtransit. So microtransit can serve a lot of the needs of the ADA paratransit buses, but doesn't have to follow all of the same requirements. But it also has benefits in that it can be booked on the same day. So this is option one. So the blue routes are routes that are every 30 minutes in service from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. The purple is every 15 minutes and the red is every 10. So the biggest changes for here, so here's the Montgomery Township microtransit zone that we'll zoom in on in a second. And in option one, Telford to Lansdale through Hatfield is also a microtransit zone. And both the 94 and 96 bus routes will stay mostly unchanged, except they will end at Lansdale train station. And both will be every 30 minutes. So that's a pretty big increase for the 94, which is currently every hour.
Right.
So that's option one. So here's the Montgomery County, or Montgomery Township microtransit zone. So it connects with the buses and the Lansdale train station there, and then would serve anywhere in the township here, but it doesn't take up the entire township. So it stops short of where 309 meets there. And
these are the points where your feedback would be really important, you know, because if you can say to SEPTA, you know what, you're missing something here, because we know there's a lot of businesses and need that's just on that corner there, Montgomery Crossing Shopping Center, for example. You know, now would be the time for them to look and see if it's feasible within the budget to kind of stretch it down that little.
That gray square means that there's going to be service every 30 minutes, right?
so that's the microtransit zone, is the gray square. So
That's
what
the on-demand.
That's the on-demand, and it would run at the same kind of time span as the fixed route, which is like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So within that time, anyone could call for microtransit service. And, you know, the goal is it's around 15 minutes on call to get within that zone, picked up and dropped off within that zone,
So,
or, you know, or in a fixed.
This is the apartments at English Village, right? I think those apartments at English Village. I mean, demand-wise, there might be some pretty significant demand there.
Yeah, that's what, like, they want to keep these zones.
It's Horsham Township, right on the border.
Yeah, they're trying to keep these zones fairly small, but I think there's specifically with the shopping center and the industrial park and those apartments, there's a pretty good case to be made for expansion of that zone a little further out, but it's up to if they think it's feasible, or if it would need, for that size, they would need another vehicle at all times and that sort of thing. But that's what the feedback would definitely be helpful for them.
But that's the kind of information they're looking for.
Yes.
That there may be more of a need and a demand in this area, maybe not so much in.
Actually, that area is still Montgomery County Fire Department. That's right across from the quarry. Because it's right, because that line is right on Hartman Road. That's what that is.
Okay.
That's Hartman Road.
Yeah.
And then that's Regency,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you're right.
How many vehicles would be in that area?
See if it tells me, but yeah, there's like, some of them are gonna be 3, some of them are gonna be 2. I'm not sure they made any ones that were 1 vehicle.
Yeah.
This won't tell me, but there is stuff to tell, but I believe this would be 2.
So it's pick up and drop off anywhere, any location in the zone.
Yeah, so designed to get.
Business and residential.
Yep, so I can either get people who live in this area who want to take the train from Lansdale into the city for work, but don't want to drive or don't like park there. Or for the last mile connections from anyone coming from the city, get off at Lansdale, can schedule one of these buses that they can drop them off at a place of employment anywhere in the.
It looks like that's going up as far as are we picking up the Colmar station?
It does not.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the train station that I get off to go to our office. So it would not cover where our office is.
I know there's currently a bus route that runs behind the dealership, and there's people every day, like 5 or 6 people. Doing that every day, they're not gonna be happy, I guess. I don't know if they work at Lowe's or.
they're building, an apartment building behind me. And I would bet you there's gonna be some people that are gonna need to have this service.
I think it's covered.
No, it is, it looks like it's covered.
That's all it's done.
Yep.
This is the slight change to scenario 2 for the area. So the 132 to Telford remains as an hourly route, but will stop at Lansdale rather than continuing through the mall. The 94 is also hourly, but then the 96 to Norristown will be a 30-minute route. But the microtransit zone is as currently proposed, is the same as the first option.
But significantly smaller.
It's the same, the microtransit zone. Because for the other gray one is the other gray is a separate zone. So this is the Telford Hatfield one is a separate zone to the Montgomery Township one. So if you wanted to go from Telford to Montgomery, like the mall, you would have to switch vehicles most likely. So
Interesting. So the vehicles are not crossing zones.
they're not supposed to, at least. That's the current plan. Yeah, they still have a lot to figure out with that, but that is the current plan and intention is that it'll be in this zone only, which is how you can get for 2 vehicles to cover this whole route with hopefully the ridership that they would be getting.
Yeah, because when you think of the traffic, Telford to Hatfield, like that's significant. And then to come further, it's going to sort of blow up their ability to get people frequently on demand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the idea is if we have someone up in Telford who needs to work at the mall, they would pick up in scenario 1. They would pick up an on-demand, take it down to Lansdale train station, they pick up a second vehicle from Lansdale to the mall.
But a
Because in
fraction of
town-
the cost of what a Lyft or an Uber would be.
Absolutely.
And then, because you have 2 bases, you have people who need it, and then to Jim's point, you have people who want to be more green. So they don't want to, they want to leave their car, maybe some of them don't even have a car because they're working from home and, want to be able to, it's a nice option instead of Uber or Lyft.
Well, in Telford, the bus stops at Landis, and they're all lined up there.
Yeah.
All the time. And they're coming down here.
Yep, so the other thing that I will say, so as far as definitely feedback, if you are outside this area, you think there's that service could definitely be supported outside this area. SEPTA is also very interested with this service for potential cost sharing agreements for places that are not getting it. Because it's a little easier to support, but they're definitely interested in that going forward to have that sort of cost sharing for expansion of especially microtransit service. So, but definitely the feedback is important to them right now.
It's okay if I share this link.
Yes,
Or
yes,
send it
please
to
do.
public?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll give feedback. Okay.
I would just offer too, because just off the spur of the moment, but if anybody kind of has workforce where they want to hear more about this and kind of want us to come on site and do a little tutorial about it, we'd be happy to do that.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of questions. And to try and put feedback just into a form without having those questions answered it can be a little challenging. But to get valuable and rich feedback, we need to do that. So, as SEPTA is one of our key partners, that's something we can do on their behalf because they don't have the bandwidth to do that. So, we're here, we're a resource.
Yeah, especially because as this transition to service happens, this is a pretty new form of service. It's definitely been popping up across the country the past few years, with some places seeing some pretty good success with it, but it's not something people are familiar with. That's why I think describing it as like a combination of a bus or Uber Lyft is the way, because most people are familiar with Uber Lyft, and it's a combination of that and a bus. So it's people are going to be hesitant, they're going to be confused, but hopefully, especially because you can see unlike most places, this is a pretty significant expansion of service area in the township, because previously everything was ending at the mall, and now having this much more of the township covered by the SEPTA service is
The only feedback I would put in is, at this point, looking at it is the Chamonix Falls could be something that might be highly utilized and is outside of the.
And to your point about English Village, I'm not a traffic engineer, but 63 dumps out right down the bottom there. So think of a loop, you could get right up 63 to the train station in Lansdale. So it doesn't seem to be out of the realm of reasonableness to say maybe reevaluate the loop.
and pick up at least Montgomery Crossing
Yes,
as a path. Because that would absolutely allow them to come down 309 and then follow a path up Welsh.
Especially because the service will utilize virtual bus stops, like you can expand the service to like, if you wanted to serve that apartment complex, you could expand it just to like the front of that apartment complex without needing to cover the whole thing, and it would just be the end of it. You would have to come up to the entrance, because that would be a virtual bus stop. The way
And we
that
just-
is.
And the same could be said for Yosemite Falls.
Mhm.
yeah.
The pickup is at the clubhouse, right? You can get yourself to the clubhouse and that's the pickup point, instead of going.
Yeah, it's not
That's a
door to
lot of
door,
houses
yeah.
right there.
Or you can get lost in it.
Often, every election day. Every election day I get lost in there.
And we're evaluating the traffic signal at Gwinnett Crossing in English Village because we've had a couple pedestrians struck in the last few months. So we met with PennDOT out there. The idea of putting, a better, there is a crosswalk there now, but with the man hand and reevaluating the traffic signal, possibly even for a left turn lane, because we just, those apartments are utilized. It's not like there's traffic here, and I see people walking across, and we can't say we want to promote walkability and then give no one an option. So we'll also factor in, that if we would do anything there, we need to consider if it's going to be a micro transit stop.
Any further questions on the bus revolution? And then, we can absolutely provide, that's a public story link with the feedback and all that. So that's easily accessible.
We've done a really good job with it.
So further updates, so a lot happening at SEPTA nowadays. So in addition to Bus Revolution, they're also doing the project Reimagining Regional Rail. So Regional Rail doesn't technically touch the township borders, but I have right over the border with Hatfield. I walk from station in Hatfield into the township. So they've released 3 draft scenarios for Reimagining Regional Rail as well. These are a bit further out. The Bus Revolution, they're probably going to start implementation later next year once they've decided, and they've got to do vehicle procurement and everything for microtransit, but the plan is to move on this fairly quickly and begin implementation and all that. Once they've picked what they're going to do, try to make sure everyone is as aware as possible, so when the change happens, there's not as much. This is a bit further out. It requires a lot of capital upgrades. They need to also figure out, they need to order new trains. That's part of it, is figuring out what the details of these new train sets are going to be depending on what they go, but they definitely solicited feedback on this as well. So they have the 3 scenarios for Reimagining Regional Rail. So the first scenario is all-day service everywhere, every 30 minutes. So that's all the way past Lansdale to Doylestown, going through Hatfield Township, right on the border of Montgomery Township here. So that would be 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. every 30 minutes on every route.
And thereby eliminating any of the express trains as well.
They would probably still have peak express trains in the peak direction, but yeah.
Okay.
So there, once again, it'll be kind of a mix of the 3 scenarios rather than hard. But the plan would still be like peak express in the normal into the city in the morning, out in the afternoon. Scenario 2 is to turn the inner parts of the regional rail system into something more like a subway, where there's a train every 15 minutes on the inner portions, but then there may be transfers or even fewer trains. So it may be, in this scenario, you would have to transfer, if you were going from between Lansdale and Doylestown, you would have to transfer at Lansdale, because that train would only go between Lansdale and Doylestown. So, and this would also be significant fare reductions. And then scenario 3 is all-day express service in both directions, focusing on the fact that the regional rail was only time competitive with driving in many cases with the express trains. So having that peak express service in both directions all day long. And we'll also on the Amtrak line, so not this one, potentially combine Amtrak service with SEPTA to have like fare integration and recognizing the passes. But since the Lansdale line is not an Amtrak line, that would not apply for this one specifically. But we also want to plug helmet fitting and bike safety in Montgomery Township. We'll be at the National Night Out on August 2nd, doing bike helmet fitting, bike safety, and other information for people on our programs and services.
That's all we have for you today, but welcome questions, more questions, and other feedback, scenarios.
Want to go, yes.
It is a lot, like, after decades of not really much changing or happening at SEPTA, especially like the things that do change are often reductions. Like they've got the first new expansion of rail service opening this summer since the airport line opened in the 80s. And all of these projects, like doesn't touch here, but they're rebranding the subway systems and the trolley systems as Metro, SEPTA Metro. They're doing the trolley modernization, all happening at once after a long time of not much happening. So it's a ton of stuff happening. It's up to.
They must have got some money.
So as a business group, we all noticed when we went into the shutdown and there was, significant reduction in traffic. Obviously, air quality improved almost, overnight. And we all started working from home, right? So now we're bringing, most industries are bringing people back to work at least part-time, in-person part-time. Is SEPTA working with the business associations to kind of incentivize or work with them concerning, hey, if you continue to allow your people to work from home, part-time, or in any way try to work with them to reduce congestion, work with business associations to reduce that congestion by encouraging one way or another, however they can, the businesses to allow employees to work from home?
I think this is speaking for an assumption. I think that like if people are going back, SEPTA would want them to be on the system because without the ridership still at 50% of what it was in Q4 2019. So the federal money is in the operating funds from the COVID relief bills throughout 2020, 2021, and then the infrastructure money for capital projects is helping keep them afloat, but the fare revenue is still important. So they definitely wanting to get ridership back. So the other thing that didn't make the presentation that's also happening is they're offering a brand new program called SEPTA Key Advantage, starting with a pilot program with Wawa in the city, Penn Medicine, and Drexel, where basically the gist is they're offering basically passes to these employers at like a 1/7 or an 1/8 of the cost of what it would be a 6-month pass for an 1/8 of what it would cost for an individual to buy them for these businesses at the cost of they have to buy one for every single employee. So it's a significant savings for anyone who was previously using SEPTA to commute because it's not free, their employer paid for it at a significant discount, and SEPTA gets the guaranteed money. So that's one of the ways they're trying to incentivize for people to come back if they're gonna come back, ride for free on SEPTA rather than drive, pay for parking, all that sort of stuff.
So the employer needs to purchase for every employee,
Yeah,
whether
that's currently how it's set up. It's gonna there's gonna be more flexibility going forward, but that's how the pilot program is, and they're rolling that out. It should be officially approved on Thursday, that can begin rolling out for more generally in the fall, because there was a lot of blowback because a lot of places were unhappy they didn't get chosen to be part of the pilot program. So they're starting with major businesses where it is that sort of model where they can offer it if they buy it for everyone, but they want to eventually expand it down to offer it to medium and smaller sized businesses, especially if there's a way to have some sort of agglomeration, through either a business park doing it, chambers of commerce, that sort of thing. That's how they see it, is to let them offer these. But that's the gist of it, is inducing people to ride again by basically having the employers provide them free transportation. Also a huge benefit right now with everyone having issues hiring, but then also getting people back on the system.
So I completely understand and get it for SEPTA to be doing this, but Partnership TMA.
For us, yeah,
Right.
So we do promote teleworking as a transportation option method of, especially for peak hour congestion reduction, where working from home, the biggest things you see is that those people aren't on the road at 7 to 8:30 a.m. So that is a thing that and then that also counts as a alternate trip mode for the DVRPC share ride program as well.
It does, okay.
Mhm.
If I could just add a couple things, I was gonna bring this up later, but we have a couple of land development projects in the works that would benefit from the micro transit. So behind Airport Square where the water tower is being constructed. It's going to be a 259-unit retirement living facility along with 2 medical office buildings and a restaurant. So obviously there would be use there. And then on DeKalb Pike, near Welsh Road, across from the Rite Aid, there's a vacant parcel. Penn Medicine is proposing an ambulatory medical facility. So obviously that coming in, I would imagine they would be utilizing staff and physicians from their other facility who would be able to get on the train and come up to Lansdale and then utilize the parking garage they're proposing actually for patients and their family members versus a lot of staff having to take it over.
But both of those locations were part of the micro
Yep.
trains.
But it's just, again, to emphasize the need for it up here.
Okay, so I'm going to just pass out a little information about our agency so that everybody has something to take away with them. Please follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletters that way. I mean, we continually post about the sector updates, and other important transportation related matters like the 309 Connector, which we didn't even have time to talk about today. But there's a separate website for that and what's happening in stage 3 in the planning. But like I say, we're a local resource and, we're available for free consultancy, if you like, for local businesses and employers and employees. Please, utilize us.
And yeah, what's especially feedback, like especially for the microtransit, because it is like designed like, in addition to serving high need for mobility around this area, it is like very on the reverse commute, sort of the last mile issues with workers from the city going to employment in the suburban area. So like hearing from employers for them, especially to say like, I think I would have employees or would be able to hire more and have more employees utilizing this service. If it were expanded in this area, they would really want to hear that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really good.